He's not even sworn into office yet, and President-elect Trump just blew up the U.S. Congress. Let the games begin. I'm Sandy Shack. I'm in for Jeff Kuhner. It was a very exciting day yesterday on Capitol Hill. President-elect Trump rejected the bipartisan spending deal that was drawing a lot of flack from an array of Republicans, with the government shutdown deadline being tomorrow. The deal was negotiated by Speaker Johnson and the Democrats to keep the government funded. And there's a lot of stuff in that CR, continuing resolution, CR is what they call it for shorthand, that made people very uncomfortable, including, by the way, a congressional pay raise, which they decided to slip in behind the disaster and agricultural aid, basically. And the CR, what it was going to do is kick the funding deadline to March 14th, meaning that they would have until March 14th to get together and get a real budget. A continuing resolution is just a continuation. It's just a smaller stopgap kind of spending bill. So that's what was going on the Hill when President Trump got involved. And the Republicans said, yeah, we're not going to vote for the CR. And boy, are the Dems mad. This was Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries last night. Cut number 10, please, Mike.
House Republicans, House Democrats, Senate Republicans, and Senate Democrats reached a bipartisan agreement to fund the government, keep it open, and meet the needs of the American people. We reached a bipartisan agreement to provide disaster assistance to everyday Americans whose lives have been upended and turned upside down as a result of hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and other types of extreme weather events. We reached a bipartisan agreement to meet the needs of the American people and provide assistance to farmers, families, children, seniors, veterans, men and women in uniform, and working class Americans.
Sounds like a good deal, doesn't it? If that was all it covered, that sounds like something you would support, doesn't it? Wow. Apparently not the House Republicans. Cut number 11, please.
House Republicans have now unilaterally decided to break a bipartisan agreement that they made. House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government and hurt everyday Americans all across this country. House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse. An agreement is an agreement. It was bipartisan, and there is nothing more to say.
That sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? Does anybody really believe that the House Republicans got orders to hurt the American people? That, that's what happened here? What is the truth of how this came about last night? And why did President Trump get involved? These are a lot of questions that need to be answered. The number here is 617-266-6868, 617-266-6868. Our text number 70470. Now, to understand what's going on here, I think you need to go back to yesterday when Speaker Mike Johnson was making the rounds, basically selling this stopgap spending bill, this compromise that he had cobbled together with the Democrats. Cut number 14, please.
We start the new Congress in January when Republicans are in control and DOJ is working on all 6 cylinders. We're going to be able to scale back the size and scope of government. But before we get to that point, remember, right now we only control 1/3 of the federal government. Remember, Democrats are still in charge of the Senate and the White House.
Okay, so he's got a point. Republicans are in control a little bit, but not It's not an overwhelming majority right now, but it will be on the other side of the inauguration come next spring. So he's saying, we just want to kick something over. Cut 14A, please.
We decided, even though we don't normally like short-term stopgap funding measures, it made sense here. Instead of doing, Chuck Schumer and Biden's spending for 2025, we pushed this decision into March. It'll be March 14th. So the feature there is that we'll have Republican-controlled Congress and Trump back in the White House, and we get to decide spending for 2025.
Okay, so essentially what he's saying here is this is a necessary evil. That a CR, a continuing resolution, is necessary because it's better to have a stopgap bill where you make some compromises with the Democrats, and then when you come to negotiate a full-fledged budget, you don't have to make that many deals with them because now you will have the majority. So he's saying that, so the smaller bill now is better, keeps everybody working, keeps the lights on, and then we'll have more power when we get to the bigger bill. Is he right? Does that make sense to you? The House GOP, the House Republican members, were going to sign it, even though they were really unhappy about it. I have a little montage of some of the House members, including, I think it's Ralph Norman of South Carolina and Chip Roy of Texas, congressmen, those types of congressmen, who are very vocal when they're upset. They did not like the continuing resolution. Cut number 12.
It's a total dumpster fire. I think it's garbage. I think that it's shameful that people that celebrate Doge coming in, and yet we're going to vote for another $1 billion to be added to the deficit. And so it's ironic.
It's opposite of what the Doge Commission is trying to do. So am I voting for it? No, I'm not.
We're just fundamentally unserious about spending. And as long as you got a blank check, you can't shrink government. If you can't shrink government, you can't live free.
They don't like this at all. They're very unhappy with this. And what they're doing is they're calling out the fact that they think Speaker Johnson made too many deals with the Democrats. If what Johnson said was true, that you make some deals now so that you have more control when you really need to do it next spring, when it's a big bill, when it really affects a lot of things, then it's worth it. But in their view, and they're in on all the meetings, he made too many of those deals. What he did was he created a bloated, out of control spending bill that, even though it is in fact short term, it does a lot of damage. And it was effectually crafted by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, or for him, basically, in order to get the Democratic support for it. It turned out that this particular continuing resolution is essentially a gift to special interests and those DC swamp creatures. It looks like what they were doing is, because Donald Trump is coming in January, and because he's going to, stop their ability to feed at the pork barrel buffet, they wanted to get as much as they possibly could in now. And so it sounds like they hung Speaker Johnson out to dry as they're looking to squeeze out everything they can before they're out the door. Because remember, it's a lame duck Congress. Most of them are gone, or a lot of them are gone at the end of this year. Now, this particular CR appears to be a conglomeration of everything that the voters rejected in the November election. It's got bloated budgets, reckless spending. It's got giveaways. It hands billions overseas, including more funding for Ukraine. It ignores the crises that we face at home. There's nothing in it that's going to fix the border, or it's going to tackle inflation. It's a big win for Big Pharma. And, despite, the fact that American people, Hakeem Jeffries was so concerned about the American people in that cut that I played, despite our demand for, reforms on lower drug prices, something the Biden administration says they're good at, which I debate, but they claim they are, and hold the healthcare industry accountable. This bill allows Big Pharma to maintain a grip on Medicare and healthcare policy. It doesn't address the failures of Medicare Part D. It prioritizes big pharma's profits over the well-being of Americans. It's an example of how Schumer and his fellow swamp creatures are trying to preserve a very corrupt status quo at our expense, at the expense of taxpayers. You know, it seems that what they want to do is tie the hands of the incoming public majority by trying to slip stuff through now, while they still have the ability to vote. And, you know, these are incredibly high stakes. If they lock in a massive spending increase and some of these bad policies now, then Republicans will lose the leverage they need in 2025 to properly clean up the mess that President Biden has left. No, so this plan of the Democrats is obvious. Pass as much of the Democrats' agenda as possible before the Republican majority can take control. And if Republicans allow this, they will find themselves unable to go after critical issues like border security, fiscal responsibility, healthcare reform, all these things that matter most. Was it a good thing that the CR was stopped? And can we handle the government shutdown? We'll be right back. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner today here at the Kuhner Report. He is on his Christmas vacation. We are talking about the dilemma of the 118th Congress to pass a horribly bloated, Democrat goody-laden continuing resolution, which will essentially lock in the massive spending increases that the Democrats want. And it would also affect the leverage that the new Republican Congress needs to, when they come in January, to properly, you know, affect change, to clean up the Biden administration chaos and mess that's left behind. So what they're trying to do in this continuing resolution, because it's their last shot before they leave, is to pass as much of the Democrat agenda as possible before the Republicans take control. And if Republicans allow this, they're going to find it very difficult to deal with issues like border security and fiscal responsibility and healthcare and et cetera, all the stuff that we really need to do. So they need to come up with a plan B. There needs to be a plan B. And what is that plan B? Well, Congress needs to pass what they call a skinny CR that does the bare minimum to keep the government running while preserving the new Congress and President Trump's leverage to address the issues that they need to. It's critical, really, to advancing President Trump's agenda and affecting those disastrous policies that Biden and his group left behind. And let's face facts, what the Republicans are looking at right now. The base is watching. We are watching. You and I are watching. And I think the American people made it really clear in November that we're done with the nonsense. We are just in no mood for this kind of bull bleep. We want reform. We want it as fast as humanly possible. And this bill is the antithesis of reform. The voters spoke really loud and clear. They want a government that's accountable, fiscally responsible, and focused on real solutions, not more giveaways to big pharma and Ukraine and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is what we're looking at right now. And it's not, by the way, and that's what you heard, the ire. You heard that in those House Republicans when I played you that montage. But they're not the only ones who are really angry. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky has weighed in. He's tweeting or Xing, however you put it, posting on X some really unpleasant stuff. He says, I hope to see Speaker Johnson grow a spine, but this bill full of pork shows he's a weak man. The debt will continually grow. Ultimately, the dollar will fail. Democrats are clueless and big government Republicans are complicit. A sad day for America. Then you've got Mike Lee of Utah said that while many who support Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, failed to translate that public support into action when they should have done so. You know, he says they think that DOGE is going to fix whatever they do now. Well, there's going to be things that even, you know, DOGE can't fit, basically, so, or can't fix. So I think they need to particularly, you know, give up on that. You've also got Josh Hawley. I like Josh Hawley. He's from Missouri. They're very plain spoken in Missouri. That's kind of their state motto. But he basically said that the continuing resolution, essentially was being delayed because nobody had a chance to properly vet it. And he said, by law, Congress is supposed to pass a budget. They're supposed to do it in September, in 10 separate budget bills so that they can debate them, read them, pass them. And they didn't do that. And obviously they blew right through the deadline. So when they got to the end of the year, they had this huge pileup. That's what they were counting on. And the fact that there's no time left, that nobody will have time to read this, that's what they wanted. And that was part of their plan to slip all of this through. So this is what we are currently being faced with. Should the Republicans stop the bill and let the government shut down? That was the question on the table. And while that was being debated, Elon Musk showed up on Capitol Hill. And the game got even more interesting. Because Elon Musk, as we all know, the incoming head of DOGE, a right-hand man of Donald Trump, came out against House Speaker Johnson's going forward with the government funding bill, going so far as to threaten lawmakers who voted for it by being primaried. He posted on X, "This bill should not pass," and said any member of the House or Senate who votes for this outrageous spending bill deserves to be voted out in 2 years. Please call your elected rep right away. Tell them how you feel. They're going to try to pass this while no one is paying attention. He has over 200 million followers. I think he could get a phone bank going, don't you? We'll be right back. 617-266-6868. This is the Kuhner Report. This is Sandy Shack. We're talking about the fact that the Democrat pork trough CR, continuing resolution, was stopped last night in its tracks. How did that happen? Well, the turn against Speaker Johnson, the deal with Jeffries and the Dems began when Elon Musk posted on X saying that, no, this is bad. Anybody who supports this, we're going to primary you. You're going to be out in 2 years, so don't support it. So Speaker Johnson appeared unconvinced that this was a problem. Because after the the post, he was asked about it. How do you feel about Elon coming out against your deal? And he said, I'm not worried. He said, Elon and Vivek, the two heads of DOGE, Vivek Ramaswamy, and I are on a text chain together. And I was explaining to them the background of this. Vivek and I talked till midnight. And he said, look, I get it. We understand you're in an impossible position. And Johnson is talking about how we told him we got to get this done because here's the key. By doing this, we're clearing the decks. We're setting up for Trump to come in roaring back with America First agenda. That's what we're going to run with gusto beginning January 3rd when we start the new Congress. Now, if that were true, he has a good point. I think he is not correct over the effect of this spending bill. And apparently Elon Musk thought so too. So Speaker Johnson was feeling pretty good even after the post. But it turns out that Musk was just the opening act on this movement against the deal that he has. Donald Trump, yesterday, President-elect Donald Trump came out against the spending bill, siding with Elon Musk's crusade. President Trump made the announcement that he is opposed to the continuing resolution. He did not like it one little bit. And then later in the afternoon, Vice President-elect and Senator J.D. Vance, with the president, released a joint statement declaring that politicians should pass a streamlined bill that doesn't give Democrats everything they want. The joint statement says Republicans want to support our farmers, pay for disaster relief, and set up our country for success in 2025. All of which I think we can all agree upon. The only way to do that is with a temporary funding bill without Democrat giveaways combined with an increase in the debt ceiling. He says anything else is a betrayal of our country. I think that kind of puts it in a nutshell, doesn't it? That kind of explains what exactly is going on here and why they don't like it. And what happened? It stopped. All the support, the reluctant support, I have to add, for the bill stopped. And that's when you saw Hakeem Jeffries come out spitting mad, just apoplectic that the CR was about to be stopped, and threatening, saying that this will destroy Americans and the government will have to turn the lights out. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. That's a huge turnaround that President Trump was able to effect. He's not even sworn into office yet. Should he have gotten involved in this? Should he have made his wishes known to the Congress through Elon Musk and then himself and J.D. Vance? Is that appropriate, given the fact that he is not sworn in yet, that he won't be sworn in until January 20th? I'm going to make that the poll question of the day here, which is brought to you. The poll question is sponsored by Mario's Roofing, Siding, and Windows. And you can take it on X at the Kuhner Report. It's also at WRKO.com/Kuhner. The question is, should Donald Trump have influenced the spending vote before he's been sworn in? It's interesting because there's no doubt that it was he who stopped it. Without it, there's not a doubt in my mind, nor there should be in anybody's mind, that Donald Trump was able to stop that resolution. Was that a good thing, and should he have done it? Let's go to the phone lines. Again, the number is 266-6868. Greg from Nashua, welcome to the Kuhner Report. How are you, sir?
Long time no talk. Happy Hanukkah, Christmas, and hopefully we get a Festivus miracle to boot.
Well, from your lips to God's ear and whoever else's ear, Greg.
I regard this as a minor Festivus miracle because, let's face it, that package, a lot of the Republicans that went along with it are either stupid enough to verify that they never should have been in office, or were simply not paying attention, or they are cooperative with our enemies. And frankly, I think November 5th pointed out that we're rather sick and tired of their games.
Well, without a doubt, I think that's true, Greg, that the November 5th showed that, we're done. We're done with the business as usual. And I think that's what both Elon Musk and President Trump are responding to, don't you think?
I have no problem at all with this possibly going to a shutdown, because the last several times this has happened, it was always the establishment Republicans that blinked. You've got the House equivalent of Mitch McConnell. It was always people that either had skin in the game if the game goes against you personally, or they were, as I stated earlier, they were clueless, they were feckless, and they were spineless. And I'm okay with, time to go, some of you guys. I like it when problem people in both parties out themselves, because you could think of that as the trash taking itself out for you.
Yes, you could. As a matter of fact, that's a good way to put it. You could in fact think of it that way. They're outing themselves. Well, I think I mentioned it a little bit before, Greg. One of the issues here is the fact that they know that they're not going to be able to get any of this stuff passed with a Republican Congress and a Republican in the White House and a Republican majority in the Senate. And so it's a Hail Mary pass to get what they want. And the problem is that, Speaker Johnson caught it. He caught the ball. And it's like, instead of just letting it, bounce into the end zone on its own, he caught it and said, okay, fine. And that I think a lot of people trusted Johnson and thought the stuff that was in the CR would be, okay, it's necessary evil stuff, just basically we have to get through. And it was a huge CR. It was 1,500 pages. So people were trying to get through it. and find out what's in it. And the more they found out, the more they were, what? I'm voting for what? I mean, it just came out yesterday that one of the things in there is a pay raise for Congress. I mean, I'm sorry. I know people that have to choose between keeping their lights on and buying food, and you're giving yourself a pay raise after you have created this horrible mess, and you have been, putzing around and not doing anything to help people for 4 years, and now you want a pay raise? And I think it's when you find passages in the bill like that, and they're buried very deeply. So you have to go deep into the bill to find stuff. And who had time for that? Because they literally, here's the bill, bang, let's vote on it. It was kind of like a Nancy Pelosi moment. You have to pass the bill to find out what's in it. Remember that famous line that she said when Obamacare was being passed? And, oh my God, we're sorry then, but we apparently haven't lost any, or learned anything, I should say. Josh Hawley pointed that out. He goes, no, they crammed everything in. This was supposed to be 10 separate bills that we could debate and vote on one by one. And instead, they cobbled it together and hid stuff in it. And as we find more of the stuff in there, we're like, wait a minute, what do you mean Big Pharma can't? What do you mean? That's what's happened. And Elon Musk and J.D. Vance and Donald Trump said no. And the most important of those, of course, being Donald Trump saying no. Because if Donald Trump had not weighed in, I think Elon Musk would have gotten a lot of PR for stomping around Congress. But I don't think anything would have happened. It was the fact that President Trump and Vice President Vance issued a statement saying, yeah, no, not going to happen. No. That's what gave Republicans who didn't want to toe the party line, who didn't want to go along with Speaker Johnson, gave them cover to say, yeah, okay, no. He says no, we all say no. So I don't have a problem with President Trump flexing his muscles in this particular way, but a lot of people do. They say he's not elected yet. Why is he interfering? What do you say to those people, Greg?
I say that that's exactly why we elected him, because we need some interference on our behalf. The outgoing administration, as they're helping them, as they're being helped to the door, you may notice that they've been starting as many fires and causing as much disruption and setting as many tripwires as they possibly can. Anyone that signed on to this, like I stated earlier, the longer they object to it, the more they out themselves. Yay for interference. Yay for reflex coming in. I want more of it.
Well, I think, the new Congress starts in January, and then the president's sworn in January 20th. So I don't think there'll have to be interference as much as action, which I think we're going to see, because we're only a month away, 31 days away from President Trump being sworn in. Thank you for the call, Greg. We'll be right back. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. This is the Kuhner Report. We're talking about how President Trump has upended the efforts to pass a stopgap spending bill to keep the government funded through March. While there was a lot of stuff in that bill, by the way. The bill also had providing disaster aid and farm aid in it. But the president says that while the soon-to-be sworn-in president, the president-elect says that we should pass a streamlined spending bill that doesn't give Chuck Schumer and the Democrats everything that they want. He and J.D. Vance issued a statement that said the only way to do that is with a temporary funding bill without the Democrat giveaways in it, combined with an increase in the debt ceiling. So he's saying, I'm happy to pass the CR. I'm happy to, or have you pass the CR. I'm happy to have you do it so that there's farm aid in there and there's disaster aid in there. But the rest of the stuff has got to go. And if the bill is not passed, the bill has to go through both chambers of Congress, the House and the Senate, and be signed by President Biden before midnight tomorrow night. That's the deadline that we are under right now with this. That's what's about to happen. So is he right? Should we let the government shut down? Because that's what's going to happen. The government's going to shut down if the bill isn't passed. Is President Trump right? Should we let the government shut down? And should he have gotten involved before he's even sworn in? He's not sworn in yet. He's got another month before he can go as president and make his wishes known. He doesn't hold any office at the moment. Neither does Elon Musk, for that matter. Neither one of them hold an office, although President Trump is, in fact, the incoming president, and he was voted for by the American people, and his platform was voted for by the American people. Should he have gotten involved? Let's talk to Dave in Pennsylvania. Dave, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Candy, how are you? It's your Western PA correspondent. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good, good. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and to you and Mike and all the hard work you do. Listen, Sandy, I'm going to tell you a little secret. This continuing resolution, the stopgap and all that, I'm a veteran. I still get my VA claim no matter if the government shuts down or not, and they don't deserve a pay raise, second of all. So if they want a pay raise, shut down the government, show that they get strong conservative values that we voted for on November 5th, and then maybe we'll think about getting a pay raise. But, Sandy, here's another dirty secret. All these people that are in chairmanships, so let's say the lead Democrat or the lead Republican in either chamber of the Congress, either the Senate or the House, they get a bump up in pay if they're the lead person on a certain committee. So there's their raise, you know?
Yeah, no, that's right. That is their race. You know, that's just one of the things, by the way, in there, Dave, that's objectionable. You've also got stuff like, in Maryland, you have the bridge, the key bridge that got knocked down, and Maryland's congressional delegation kind of wields a lot of power in Congress because they are, and they're all Democrats, they're on most of the spending committees, which, you know, are the committees that ease the path for regional priorities. And Senate leaders are very eager to send Ben Cardin, the Democrat of Maryland, into retirement, because he's a retirement, with funding for the Key Bridge. And the cost to rebuild that bridge is about $2 billion. So instead of like Maryland kicking in some of this and their lawsuit from the company kicking in some, they want the federal government to cover it all. And it's a gift to Ben Cardin, and that's in the bill too. That's there. There's also a deal in there to transfer control of RFK Stadium to DC. And Maryland is also securing the transfer of an Air National Guard squadron from the district. So they're doing a swap that we're paying for too. Again, that's Maryland getting that. These are pork barrel things from Maryland. This is the kind of stuff that's in there. Very specific money transfers that help very powerful Democrats. And they're trying to slide them in quickly. That's the kind of thing we're looking at. Now, there's also good stuff in there. You know, there is money for FEMA. There is money for the agricultural department and aid for farmers and ranchers, but it's massive. I think the FEMA is at $29 billion. The agricultural department's at $21 billion, and it's $10 billion aid to farmers and ranchers. Now, I am all for giving aid for FEMA, and I have no problem with aiding farmers and ranchers. But you don't have to do it to that tune in this bill. You can give them aid what they need to get through until the spring, when this stuff can be debated and more realistically assessed, as opposed to just throwing all these dollars at them. That's the kind of thing that's in there, Dave. And that's driving me crazy. How about you?
Sandy, one more thing. There's also that part of going to the State Department, like something about censoring conservative talk show people or something. There's something that censored a bunch of people that's going to the State Department. I forget what they call it offhand, but I heard Bongino talking about it, and also Jeff mentioned it yesterday.
Okay. So, but that's not in this. That's not in the continuing resolution. That's
all right. Well, that's
something else. But yeah, but if it were, at least Donald Trump has stopped it at this point in time. And that, to me, so you are good with President Trump getting involved, even though he's not sworn in yet.
Yes, I am, because we have a mandate. We won November 5th, and the Democrats got to understand they got their butts kicked, and Kamala's got to shut up in the cackling. And we won, Sandy, and we have a mandate of mandates, you know?
Yeah, I know. I absolutely know. Thank you for the call, Dave. I appreciate it very much. When a caller drops off, it means a line is opened up for you. 617-266-6868 is the number here. The text number is 70470. On the text line, 617 says, Sandy, are you guys serious? You don't give these people their raises and better pay. Then we wonder why they're all corrupt, making money on the side and doing deals. They need to go up and corruption needs to stop. That's how you fix these problems. So you want to pay them for doing a bad job so that we can get more people like them. That's what you're looking for. By the way, congressmen, it's not like they make $50,000 a year. They make a decent living. There's no doubt about it. And they can do speaking fees. There's a lot of stuff they can do that are legit without being corrupt. So they can make more money without doing corrupt. It requires them to make an effort and make work. But I don't think they should be being, rewarded for sitting on their ass for the past 4 years and doing the abysmal job that our Congress has done, to the point where have you seen inflation? When's the last time you went shopping? That's not just Biden. That's Biden and his Congress. That's what has happened. They are responsible for that. And you want to reward them so we can get more people like them. I don't agree with you 100 at all, even a little bit. 603 says Trump is POTUS now. Well, it appears so, because he issued a statement and a continuing resolution deal fell apart. Within hours, it fell apart. That's pretty impressive as far as I can see. Let's go to another Dave in Pennsylvania. Dave, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Good morning, Sandy. Merry Christmas, and thank you for having me on the Shack Attack.
Well, thank you, sir, for joining. I appreciate that very much.
The Shack Attack, I love that. So, a couple quick points. What they're trying to do is Trump-proof 2025, or at least the beginning of it, by front-loading that with the debt and the giveaways. But some of the programs in there, besides the pay raise and the bridge, I believe the thing about the State Department is in there one way or the other. There's DEI provisions in there. There's a provision in there not only for the raises, but to protect members of Congress from prosecution from acts that they've done in the last 4 years. Committee, for example. So they're trying to Trump-proof this, spend as much money as they can. The Biden administration is already trying to spend as much money in their appropriations budget to put Trump in a hole right out the gate. And that's the main part of that. With Speaker Johnson, you can't negotiate with a Democrat or compromise, because compromise to them is my way or no way. And if he thinks if he compromises now with them, they were going to compromise with him in 2025, he's very naive. His speakership is going to be on the line. They need someone with some backbone. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
Well, it's interesting. A texter, and the text number is 70470 if you want to weigh in, made the suggestion to pull Johnson and put Matt Gaetz in as speaker. What do you think of that?
Well, that makes sense, because you don't have to be an elected member of the House of Representatives to be speaker. And wouldn't that be a nice little bit of revenge there? And I got a question for you, Mike, though. I'd like to know what broadcast microphone you're using, because I feel like your board settings are for Jeff and not for you.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. If you're using an SM7B, you might want to put a cloud lifter in there to bump you up about 10 dB, because your voice is very soft.
Okay, well,
Jeff is very loud.
That's true. My voice is very soft, especially compared to him. Well, you know what? I thank you for the suggestion, and I will, in fact, mention it to engineering. I appreciate that very much, Dave. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Mark in Medford. Mark, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Sandy, and I think your voice sounds perfectly fine.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Well, Sandy, this is the Democrats' MO. Every time there's a bill they want to put out, yes, they always sneak some stuff into it. And the fact that they want to give themselves a raise in this bill is absolutely asinine. They don't deserve a raise. In fact, they deserve a pay cut. So, yeah, I agree with Trump. Shut it down. But you know what, Sandy? What cracks me up is this, they don't agree with the Republicans, and they're going to turn it around and blame the Republicans if something bad happens towards the American people. But isn't this the same Democratic Party that for the last 4 years, when they talked about democracy, in order to save democracy, we must destroy democracy? So when you called it like a necessary evil earlier, isn't that the same thing? But now it's okay, but now it's not okay?
Yeah. 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 Yes, indeed. I would agree with that assessment, Mark. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So did you have any problem, by the way, Mark, in Donald Trump going up on the Hill, or not going up the Hill, but issuing a statement of basically interfering would be one word for it. I don't necessarily like that word, but interfering with the business of Congress before he is sworn into office?
Not one bit, Sandy. I mean, why should he be stuck with something they're going to create before they get out of office? And this is the only reason why they're doing it. They're going to try and squeeze every penny they can out of us.
Yeah.
Before they get ousted.
What about Elon Musk? Elon Musk is not elected. He's never been elected to anything. He went up there and he was, basically threatening members of Congress, saying, if you vote for this, we're going to primary you. Did you have a problem with that?
Good for him. And as I would say, I love Elon Musk in a non-sexual way.
Yeah, I need a T-shirt that says that. I love Elon Musk. And I adore Elon Musk. And so I have huge respect for him. And, it's tough not to admire a guy who basically comes from nothing and makes himself the richest man on the face of the earth and builds rockets as a hobby. He's going to Mars because he had nothing else to do last weekend. So that's that's just genius. And he thinks outside the box, which I really respect. We'll see how, the interesting thing to me is that you have two of these geniuses. I think Donald Trump is a genius on many levels. I think he thinks outside the box, which is what makes, I think, the American people resonate with him. And so does Elon Musk. I'll be interested to see how long they stay copacetic with each other, because usually huge intellects and personalities like that have trouble in the long run working together because they start to chafe or butt heads. But so far they seem to be on the same page. And what's really interesting to me, Mark, is that Elon Musk used to be a Democrat. And was when he had all his businesses in California. And it wasn't until the pandemic and he saw the draconian and at the same time hypocritical regulations and rules and almost martial law that the governor of California did that made him go, yeah, no, and he took his businesses to Texas. And that's when he started. I don't think he cared about politics right up until then. And then when it started to affect his business, he's like, is this what's going? Oh my God. And then he's had this evolution to now where he's going to be vice chair of Doge, and he is now Donald Trump's right-hand man. But I thought of him yesterday. I've heard a lot of people criticize the fact that Elon Musk was doing this lobbying on the Hill. But here's the thing, Mark. Capitol Hill is overrun with lobbyists, special interest groups everywhere. So I've never heard any of these people that I heard last night on CNN or MSNBC who were criticizing Elon Musk for trying to influence Congress. I've never heard any of them criticize the lobbyists for a defense contractor or the cigarette or the tobacco industry or Big Pharma. They're up there. When's the last time you heard anybody criticize them asking Congress for something?
Well, Sandy, think about this for a second, okay? When Trump got elected the first time in 2016, he got elected because he wasn't a politician. He spoke his mind, and he was a businessman. He's a billionaire, and he's a billionaire for a reason, okay? Now you have the biggest billionaire in the whole world being his right-hand man. What more can you ask for the next 4 years? Hopefully 8. Even though it's going to be without Trump, but hopefully 8 if Elon Musk decides to stay in there if J.D. Vance becomes the president.
Yeah. No, I agree. Thank you so much for the call, Mark. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great Christmas or holiday, whatever it is that you Whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Festivus, whatever you like, Kwanzaa, I hope you have a wonderful one. Let's go to Dan in New Hampshire. Dan, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Thank you for taking my call, Sandy.
You're welcome.
You're doing a great job, by the way. President Trump is absolutely right. First of all, wasn't it Hakeem? As far as Hakeem Jeffries blaming the Republicans for not funding the hurricanes and floods, wasn't it President Biden and the Democrats who refused to fund FEMA? And let's not forget, okay, Speaker Mike Johnson, okay, hasn't been doing his job. He hasn't been voting on single subject bills. Both speakers, him, Mike Johnson, and Hakeem Jeffries, are both funded by the dirtiest of PACs, AI PAC, okay? This is a PAC that funds people, corrupt politicians on both sides of the aisle, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, corrupt Joe Biden, Mike Pence, Mitt Romney, Adam Schiff, okay? So, why Trump is right? Because it violates the Budget Control Act of 1974. It's a federal law that says that you're required to have a balanced budget. Nestled in within that balanced budget, you're supposed to vote on single subject spending bills that appropriate dollars to various agencies of government. Okay? So, no CRs, no omnibus, no more money for other countries. They've been violating the law. Okay? And this goes back all the way to Speaker Newt Gingrich, who was the first to start bundle bills in 1996. He's the godfather of it. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it was billions and billions of dollars, okay, of pork tied up in one bill for one up and down vote is not doing the job of the Congress. It leaves everybody unaccountable for their vote. And by voting on single subject bills, this makes everybody accountable. Because you can't say, I didn't vote for this and I voted for that.
Well, that's what they were supposed to do, Dan. That was the deal. They were supposed to do 10 of these bills, and they were all going to be debated on and voted for, so you could see what was in everyone. But they but the Dems put them off. They put them off, and they put them off, and they put them off, so that you had to do it all at once to get them done before the end of the year. They were thinking, I'm sure, that the government shutdown was a big enough stick that it would make people just vote for the bill so the government didn't shut down, because nobody wants a government shutdown over the holidays, over Christmas, over the New Year. You know, nobody wants that. And so that's what they were hoping for. And instead, you have Donald Trump going, shut it down. And I agree with him. I think it's okay to shut down the government until, I don't know, till when? Would we have to do it until he gets into office? Is that what it's going to be? If they shut the government down, will it stay shut down until January 20th? That's a month away. Can we do it? Can we wait a month before we reopen up, knowing that, or will it take just till the new Congress comes in, which is basically 2 weeks away? So we would only be shut down for 2 weeks. We've done that before. Can we do it again? Is this going to distress your life in any way that you would not support it? Does it affect your friends, your family? Would you be okay shutting the government down until the new Congress? 617-266-6868 is the number here. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. The text number is 70470. This is Sandy Shack. I'm sitting in for Jeff Kuhner today on the Kuhner Report. Oh, my God. It's just so many things are popping up from this continuing resolution that it's just kind of shocking when I'm just going through the pages. We've been talking about President Trump killing the CR deal that Speaker Johnson negotiated with the Democrats because it was chock full of wasteful spending and a few other kind of interesting items, not the least of which was that the Democrats in Congress wanted to vote themselves a pay raise. And that's, bad enough. But there's something that was mentioned by a previous caller, and I thought it was in a separate bill, but I was wrong. It is in the CR, which our last caller pointed out, so I looked it up. The State Department agency, which has been, chided by the Republicans for blacklisting of Americans in news outlets is, according to the CR, going to be refunded. The Global Engagement Center, it was included. That's the name of it. Was included in. Apparently, it's on. I just looked it up. It's on page 139 of the continuing resolution. And it doesn't in the CR specify what its budget allocation is. But if you look at a previous Inspector General report, it shows that the agency's budget for 2020, fiscal year 2020, was $74.26 million, of which $60 million was appropriated by Congress. So we're talking, upwards of $60 million is going to be funneled to this group. And it's, if you look for it, which I did, it's under Foreign Affairs, Section 301, Global Engagement Center Extension. And this is despite the State Department saying that it was going to shut down that agency by next week. It's in the CR. So the State Department is saying we're going to shut it down, but it's in the CR for next year. And what this group does is that it's funded a secret list of subcontractors and helped to pioneer a new form of blacklisting. This all happened during the pandemic. It was exposed by Matt Taibbi last year. He wrote about it. I looked up some of the articles because I remember him writing about it. He was talking about how this particular group, the global, what are they called again? The Global Engagement Center. They make my skin crawl, to be honest with you, because I'm a big believer in freedom of speech, and anybody that does censorship just makes the hair on the back of my arms go up. They flagged accounts as Russian personas and proxies based on criteria like describing the coronavirus as an engineered bioweapon, blaming research conducted at the Wuhan Institute, and attributing the appearance of the virus to the CIA. They also flagged accounts that retweeted news that Twitter banned Zero Hedge, claiming it had led another flurry of disinformation narratives. Elon Musk has described GEC as being the worst offender in U.S. government censorship and media manipulation. Musk says that they're a threat to democracy. It's so funny that the Democrats keep saying that Trump is the threat to democracy when one of their own agencies is actually a prime offender. But GEC is part of the State Department, but it's also partners with the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, and, by the way, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, otherwise known as DARPA. They funded a lot of odd programs, which purpose was to ferret out Americans who don't agree with them. That's what it looks like. And the GEC has been used as a tool for censorship. Now, Congress authorized the creation of the GEC to counter what they said was foreign propaganda and misinformation. Instead, what the agency did was weaponize their authority to violate the First Amendment and to suppress Americans' right to free speech. That's what the lawsuit against them said. So the Department of State said, okay, we'll stop it. We'll end it. It'll stop now before the end of the year. Except they just tried to fund it for another year. I mean, I don't know what they were, because my guess is that if Elon Musk saw that come across his desk, that would be one of the first things to go. So were they going to change its name? Were they going to try to hide it? I mean, how are they going to handle that? That's just it's kind of strange, don't you think, what they were doing? 617-266-6868 is the number. 70470 is the text number. On the text line, 617 says, Sandy, did you ever have a child at a store who is told they can get one thing and they throw a tantrum? A good parent would pick the child up and walk out of the store without buying anything, not allowing the child to get everything they want. Close the government until the politicians grow up. I think that's a really good point. I like that whole analogy. Another texter, let's see, on 508. So Johnson is agreeing to completely fund FEMA so that they continue to refuse to assist Trump supporters and, let's admit it, white people. Okay, Yeah, that would appear to be one of the things that they're doing. Then another 603 says Trump 45, Trump 46.5, Trump is POTUS now, Trump 47. Yeah, I think that's exactly what President Trump is demonstrating, is that he is not waiting for January 20th to be president. He's flexing his muscles now. Do you have a problem with that? Should he have waited until he was sworn in on January 20th to try to influence Congress? Or is President Trump making his wishes known now perfectly acceptable to you? Because the results are that the CR has been stopped for the time being. It's got till midnight tomorrow, and it's quite possible the government will shut down. 617-266-6868. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. 617-266-6868. This is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner here on the Kuhner Report. Again, our number is 617-266-6868. The continuing resolution has to midnight tomorrow night to pass, or the government shuts down. Does this upset you? Would you be okay with that happening? On the text line 70470, let's see, 818 says, government shutdown only affects the government, not the general public. Congress is actually ushering in the collapse of their own country. That's what it seems like to me, with them trying to get all this stuff passed in no time. But President Trump says the current form of the continuing resolution is unacceptable, causing the GOP members of Congress to withdraw their support for it. This is what President Trump had to say. If Republicans try to pass this is a statement that he issued. If Republicans try to pass a clean continuing resolution without all of the Democrat bells and whistles that will be so destructive to our country, all it will do after January 20th is bring the mess of the debt limit into the Trump administration rather than allowing it to take place in the Biden administration. Any Republican that would be so stupid as to do this should and will be primaried. Everything should be done and fully negotiated prior to my taking office on January 20th. So he's saying, knock the crap off. Just keep the government open. I'm not going to, don't you dare raise the debt ceiling, which I guess is in this CR too, until, it's not your purview. In a different post, he adds, sounds like the ridiculous and extraordinarily expensive continuing resolution plus is dying fast, but can anyone imagine passing it without either terminating or extending the debt ceiling guillotine coming up in June? Unless the Democrats terminate or substantially extend the debt ceiling, I will fight till the end. So he wants the debt ceiling extended or terminated. He says this is a nasty trap set in place by the radical left Democrats. They're looking to embarrass us in June when it comes up for a vote. The people that extended it from September to June should be ashamed of themselves. It was a political malpractice. Also, that's what we just talked about. The GEC, the Global Engagement Center, which he calls the Communist Global Engagement Center, a project of crooked Hillary Clinton, should not in any way, shape, or form be extended, and the shielding of the very corrupt JC Unselect Committee of Political Losers and Thugs would be suicidal for any Republican approving it. Likewise, this is not a good time for Congress to be asking for pay increases. Hopefully, you'll be entitled to such an increase in the near future when we make America great again. So basically, he's saying no to the GEC, stop screwing with the debt ceiling, and in fact, if you want a pay raise, you got to earn it. That's what he's saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Or do you think that he had no business saying anything until he's sworn in? Let's talk to John in Watertown. John, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Yeah, what's upsetting is the whole financial system. Why are we the only country in the world that creates $36 trillion in debt? Now, I started to look into, on the computer, the debt to who and how much. And I find out that a large of it, I thought all came from the Federal Reserve. No, a lot of it comes from foreign countries and investors. But whenever they give up loaning us money, the whole system will collapse. Now, a large comes from the Federal Reserve. They charge us interest for money they create out of thin air. It is illegal because the Constitution, that almost no one knows, says only Congress can create the money, not a private corporation called the Federal Reserve. And that's why they killed JFK, because he printed, go to any coin store, have them order you some $2 bills. It won't say Federal Reserve note. It'll say U.S. government note. and that's why they killed him, because he wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve. That's the big financial problem. Okay? And if you want to learn about it, any of your listeners, look at The Money Masters by Bill Still. That'll inform you how the whole system works. And how can all these senators and congressmen and talk show people not understand our financial system? It's unbelievable, Sandy. And Sandy, thank you for letting me talk. And I think you're one of the best of the, not that there should be a difference between men and women, but when you come on, I think you're very open-minded and let people talk. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. That's very kind. I appreciate that very much. Well, that's kind of what we're here for, to let people vent and, take part in a dialogue. This is always my big problem with a lot of the Democrats, is they don't like dialogue. If you don't agree with somebody, then you don't let them speak, and that drives me crazy. Because I'm very much I may argue with you, and I may not agree with what you say, but I'm gonna always defend your right to say it. So I appreciate that very much, John. So let me ask you off the top, because I don't think you answered the question, which is, was it okay for Donald Trump to get involved in the CR? Oh, we lost him, so he can't answer. Well, maybe Scott from Revere can. Scott, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
I love Kuhner country in a non-sexual way.
Hey, Scott, how are you? Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to all. And yes, of course, Trump should absolutely step forward and make America great ASAP, which means now.
Well, he's certainly not waiting, which I don't have a problem with, because as I said before, it's like any other lobbyist to me, what he's doing, which I don't have a problem with. Do you?
Sandy, you hit it out of the park when you said, you know what, these lobbyists get up there, and, they don't have a quarter of the money that Elon Musk has. This guy, come on, he makes a fortune, and he knows how the money markets work. He knows how all that stuff works. And when he sees a bunch of real crime, and that's what this bill is, crime on paper. That's all it is. And if anybody to vote for this, come on, like you were just saying about that bill, the one Republican on that council, or the council you were just talking about, the $60 million, the one Republican voted no, all the Democrats voted yes, and in about, like you said, when the year ends, the Republican is going to run so what they're doing is the end around to get $60 million in 2 weeks. That's all it is. And you hit it out of the park. They're going to steal the $60 million by the end of the year for the Democrats and give it to the globalists, steal the $60 million, and then start from scratch again. When it comes time to renew the bill. And it's a joke. That's what they do. They're going to steal our money. And you're great at it, and you're really good at it. I'm not so good at it. But you can see where the money's flowing, who it's flowing to. And Johnson, what can we do, Sandy? Do we create a monster with this guy Johnson, or what? I mean, does he do anything for the Republicans?
I think, to be honest with you, to be fair to him, it's his job to get a deal to stop the government. This is the same issue that essentially killed Speaker McCarthy. And so, I mean, I understand what the problem is. His job, he saw it, wasn't to protect President Trump coming in. He saw it as his job to keep the government lights on. I disagree that was his job in this case, but I think that's what happened. But now, because it's been stopped, he has to look for a plan B. So that's what his focus is, to try to put together an agreement with the Democrats that will pass muster, that will pass Trump's muster. And it looks like the Democrats don't want to do that. They don't care. If they're not going to get their goodies, they don't want to do it. And I played this cut earlier, but this is Hakeem Jeffries, who's trying to make this sound like we hate farmers and we hate disaster victims. Cut number 10.
House Republicans, House Democrats, Senate Republicans, and Senate Democrats reached a bipartisan agreement to fund the government, keep it open, and meet the needs of the American people. We reached a bipartisan agreement to provide disaster assistance to everyday Americans whose lives have been upended and turned upside down as a result of hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and other types of extreme weather events. We reached a bipartisan agreement to meet the needs of the American people and provide assistance to farmers, families, children, seniors, veterans, men and women in uniform, and working class Americans.
Notice, Scott, that he doesn't mention the GEC, the State Department for Censorship. Notice that he doesn't mention Key Bridge being funded. Notice that he doesn't mention Big Pharma getting a boost. Notice that he doesn't mention that that there's a pay raise in there for Congress. Notice that he doesn't mention all these other things. It's the things that they can agree upon that he's mentioning. And now he's saying that without the CR, all these people are going to be hurt and it's the Republicans' fault. How about it's going to be the Democrats' fault because they put all this other crap into that bill, making it unpassable? How about that? Because Donald Trump has said, and the Republicans have said, we're happy to fund FEMA, we're happy to fund veterans, we're happy to do all of that. Get this other stuff out and let's pass it. But Jeffries doesn't mention that. 617-266-6868 is the number here. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. We've been talking about the stalling of the budget continuing resolution in Congress. If the CR does not pass by midnight tomorrow, then the government lights go out. And it looked like it was on its way to passing until President Trump said, not so fast. There's a lot of hidden, not so nice surprises in that will hurt the American people, hurt our budget, and hurt the next administration. Are you okay with President Trump getting involved before being sworn in? And are you okay with turning out the lights until we can bring in a new Congress to basically do an end run around this Congress, which is more concerned with getting goodies before the end of the year? Let's talk to Rick in Natick. Rich, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Good morning.
So, Rich, what do you think? Are you okay with Donald Trump making his wishes known and affecting a continuing resolution like this? And if so, are you good with closing it down until the new Congress comes in?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, this is a grace period / transition period. He's been elected. He's just technically not into office, but he should have some say in the matter, absolutely. And Hakeem Jeffries, him and his stupid hand gestures, right? He left out the part. I can't stand them. Him, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala, they all do it, but they think they can mesmerize you with hand gestures. Anyway, but he left out the Democrat operatives that were working for FEMA that were skipping over the houses that had Trump signed the flags. Yeah, how convenient.
Well, also the thing that really outraged me about Hakeem Jeffries last night when he came out was that he was talking about how, these are the things that are in the bill, and he lists the things that everybody supports, which are essentially, farmers, ranchers, FEMA, disaster victims. These are all things that we can get behind and say, yeah, we want to help. This is a good use of our tax money. But that's not what Donald Trump is having an issue with. That is not what the Republicans are having an issue with. Yet he tried to make it the issue. Listen to this cut, too, Rich. Cut number 11, please.
House Republicans have now unilaterally decided to break a bipartisan agreement that they made. House Republicans have been ordered to shut down. That's
not the whole cut there. Is something happen in there, Mike? Mike, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can we play that cut again? Cut number 11, please.
House Republicans have now unilaterally decided to break a bipartisan agreement that they made. House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government and hurt everyday Americans all across this country. House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse. An agreement is an agreement. It was bipartisan, and there is nothing more to say.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to say, don't you, Rich? In that, what the CR did was also give Congress a pay raise, which is also fund the GEC, which was about censorship through the State Department, which also paid for the Key Bridge, which is a going away president for Senator Cardin in Maryland. Which also, this is, and it also, and Big Pharma, it did all sorts of stuff that have nothing to do with those things that he mentioned. Yet we're supposed to feel, oh my God, the Republicans want to hurt Americans, and there's nothing more to say. I find that incredibly disingenuous, and I don't have a problem with President Trump, as any lobbyist would do, trying to stop this and say, no, hold off. What do you say, Rich?
Isn't it convenient that he leaves all those things out? I'm wary of them anytime they go on TV, because that's when they try to fearmonger, and that's when they distort information or even withhold information like you just mentioned. So if you watch and pay attention carefully, anybody with common sense can see what they're trying to do. And that's one of the reasons they lost this election, and they lost big, and they're going to continue to lose if they stay on that path.
Yeah, you know what? And I've heard a lot too from mainstream media, like horrified that he threatened to primary people. What did you think he was going to threaten them with? A firing squad? Of course, the threat is always, we're going to primary you. That's what the threat is. If you don't pass legislation that we like, we're going to run against you. That to me is not a threat. That's a statement of fact. You don't do what we sent you to Washington to do, well, then we're going to try to send somebody else. I don't view that as some kind of thug move, which is what they're portraying it to be. That's a statement of reality. Either vote the way I want you to vote, or I'll try to put somebody else in there who will. And that's what every election is about, putting somebody in there who's going to do what the American people want to do, or their district is going to want them to do. So I didn't find it offensive. I didn't find it thuggery, but I know those who did. And I don't have a problem with either Elon Musk or Donald Trump getting up there and acting like any other lobbyist on the face of God's earth. I have seen lobbyists from the tobacco industry. I have seen lobbyists from defense contractors. I have seen lobbyists from thousands of different industries going up there and pleading their case and going into, and not that some of them, they don't just plead their case. Let me take you out to dinner. Let me take you here. Let me tell you. There's all sorts of things way worse or much more in your face than what these two gentlemen did, what Donald Trump and Elon Musk did, which was basically go up and say, I think this is wrong, don't do this. They both said that. And their cudgel was, we'll primary you. Okay, if you think they're toothless, what do you care if they're going to primary you? Obviously, they're not toothless because they just won a mandate in November. Well, Donald Trump did, not Elon Musk, but Donald Trump did. So I thought that was a very reasonable thing to do. How about you, Rich?
Absolutely. And these people are so power hungry, and that's why they do the things that they do. They get drunk with power. They get greedy, and things are so good up there. The lawmakers don't do much of the work. They show up to some meetings here and there and sign some papers, but all their underlings do all the work. So you get people running around kissing their rear end all the time. You have minimal amount of work. I don't know how many days a year they work. I know it's not a full year. So it's so good up there. They'll lie, cheat, and steal to try to stay up there. So, and we've caught on to it, and the American people want different. And I'm going to quote the coach, Bill Belichick, do your job and add on to it. And don't be a dirtbag.
that is probably the best requoting of Bill Belichick I've ever heard. I think that's absolutely, positively perfect. And thank you for the call, Rich. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, this is the problem. They haven't been doing their job, and so now they're trying to crush everything at the end of the year to get what they want in, so that we won't know that that's what they're getting. They've been sitting on their you-know-whats for, gosh, at least the past 2 years, most likely the past 4. And we need to do something about it. And that's what Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and J.D. Vance are saying that they're going to do. And the electorate told the government and everybody else that that's what they wanted in November. So for Congress to try to surreptitiously sneak these things in is really reprehensible, I think. And I think that poor Speaker Johnson, and I don't mean poor as in, pitiable. I mean as in without a clue. He's without a clue. Thought that the bigger issue was essentially getting the CR passed so the government kept its lights on. But if the government is doing some very unpleasant things to the American people in regard to how they spend our money, then do we want them to keep their lights on? I'm saying we probably don't, to be honest with you. Let's go to Tom in Cincinnati. Tom, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Good, Sandy. You're doing a phenomenal job in place of Jeffrey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hopefully he's listening and taking all those compliments that you're getting. So, Sandy, shut it down.
Do you have a problem with Donald Trump going up there and Elon Musk going up there and going, yeah, guys, don't do this, or we're gonna primary you?
Not one bit. I call them the four horsemen: Vivek, Elon, JD, and Trump. And you know what? If we can't trust the four horsemen, who else can we trust? Because nobody else is looking out for our back.
I think they have shown that they do. Because, they were inviting a lot of criticism, basically, by doing what they did. And the mainstream media, the Democrats, are screaming bloody murder. They're trying to make it sound like, see, we told you billionaires would take over and take all your money, when it's exactly the opposite of that. They're trying to protect the American people's tax money. They don't want it to go into the pockets of special interests. And they're also trying to avoid some very unpleasant bills that were in there that would basically limit their ability to fix what President Biden has done over the past 4 years. And that would hamstring them. And that's why they were going against the continuing resolution. Do we want the government to keep its lights on? I think we do, Tom. I mean, there's all sorts of things that will be affected if we don't. But is it going to plunge us into the apocalypse? No, it's not. It's going to be really inconvenient until the new Congress comes in, which is, I think, the first or second week in January, right? First week in January. Isn't it like January 3rd that they come back? Or maybe I'm wrong on the particular date, but it is the first week in January that they come back, and they get them in before the president comes in, and then he comes in January 20th. So even if we had to wait till January 20th, that's a month. It's not like we have to wait a year. It's a month. So I think we can do that. Would you support the Republicans in Congress if that's in fact what they decide to do?
Yeah, Sandy. I mean, I look at it this way. Well, what's another month? One. Number two is there's all this pork in there. I saw a brilliant breakdown of this on Nancy Mace's X account. She showed the previous one in September that they passed. 32 pages, 84 days. Base information. No FEMA funding, none of that, which, they didn't know about it in September, all the hurricanes. So then she compared this 1,581 pages, okay, for the same duration of time, 84 days.
Wow.
32 pages to 84. And it's just chocked, as we've all discussed, with all this crap. So you have the richest guy in the world, and Vivek Ramaswamy, that read the entire thing and said, oh no, hell no, you are not going to agree to this. And if those Republicans that have agreed to it can't figure out, and they're that stupid, that if they don't go along with the agenda, they're going to be primary, then they need to be out now. Don't wait around.
What do you say to those people on mainstream media who are saying, "Oh, that's a thug. Look, they're threatening." It's like saying, either go my way or I won't vote for you. I mean, that's a threat. Isn't that just basically how it's supposed to work? Isn't that how our electoral system, I don't agree with what you do, I don't vote for you next time. Isn't that essentially what they said? Except that, of course, you have Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who have a lot of followers and people listen to what they say. And so it's not just their vote, they bring other votes with them. But still, when you come right down to it, it's just about people voting for you. And that's a threat?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, Sandy. They will spin it. The corporatist media will spin it as, we told you back before the election, threat to democracy. Now you've turned the reins of the government over to two non-governmental employees. Doge is now taking over. Oh, my God. The kids, the sixth graders are not going to be able to go to the Smithsonian and go on their tour, and they paid for their plane tickets. And the honor flight veterans aren't going to be able to come and see the Vietnam War Memorial. Oh, my God. And the employees are not going to get paid, and it's going to be cats living with dogs.
The famous Bill Murray line, cats and dogs living together. Do you remember, Tom, but the last one that I remember under Obama, they tried to make, with that shutdown, they tried to make it as painful as possible. They didn't try to make it unpainful. They didn't try to make everybody's life easier. They tried to make it, the Dems did, as painful as possible so that there would be a voter uprising against the people who didn't want the CR. For instance, when you went to Yosemite, which is a national park, they put a screen around Old Faithful so people couldn't look at it because there was no funding. So, you could walk into the park, but you couldn't look at Old Faithful. They put a screen around it to stop you from looking at. That's the kind of crap they pulled. And I suspect, Tom, that that's the kind of crap they'll try to pull again, except that this time you have a very strong leader or leaders, as you listed them, and, you have very strong leaders who are going to say, take the screen down. That's what's happening now. Or stopping people, putting barricades up so you couldn't go to the Vietnam War Memorial. They were doing garbage like that in the last big government shutdown to teach us a lesson for shutting down the government. I don't know if they can get away with that this time. What do you think?
No, they can't, because you have a different leadership that's getting ready to bust the door down. That's the sixth grade example I gave you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did. The media interviewed crying sixth graders from some bus trip from, I don't know, Pennsylvania or somewhere, and they're interviewing the teachers, and we're looking so much forward to it. And look at them, they're crying. We can't go into the Smithsonian, and we saved up all this money. Bull crap. Bull, as Jeff would say, Bravo Sierra.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Thank you so much for the call, Tom. I appreciate it. Drive safely out there in Cincinnati. Let's talk to Ben on the North Shore. Ben, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Morning, Sandy. First of all, the problem, whose problem this is or who caused it, I think it's the speakers, and here's the reason why. I know it's a tough job, but I believe the House has passed either 7 or 8 of the appropriations bills. They've sat for I don't know how many months on Schumer's desk. They all knew when the budget would come up, whatever it is, December 20th, I believe. Why wasn't the Speaker, other Republican legislatures, why weren't they out talking about it? The government's going to shut down. Chuck Schumer, you've got the appropriation bills on your desk. When are you going to take them up and pass something?
That's a really good point. I agree with you, Ben. Why weren't they? Why didn't they?
They're now talking about it. You see, it doesn't take Jeffries long to get out there when you don't get his way.
Yeah, the first thing, within I would say an hour of the news coming that that the Republican support had vanished for the stopgap method, he was out there in front of the microphone and very self-righteous. Well, I think he knew it was important to quickly spin it as fast as possible as not a Democratic issue or a Democrat issue, which of course it is. I mean, the reason, and this is their modus operandi, Ben. What they do when they want to hang non-passage of something around the Republicans is they list the positive things in the bill. In this case, it's, FEMA and ranchers and old people and vets, support for them is in that bill. Nobody disagrees with that. Nobody disagrees with any of those. The Republicans don't have a single issue with that. President Trump stated in his statements to everybody on social media, and the statement that he and J.D. Vance released, and Elon Musk has said the same thing in his media posts. Nobody has an issue with any of that. Yet that is what Hakeem Jeffries talked about last night. They don't like old people. They don't like vets. They don't like, disaster relief people. They don't mention all the stuff the Dems tried to cram in there in order because if we mention that, then people would realize, well, this is why the Republicans don't want to pass the bill. This is why Donald Trump doesn't like the bill. That's the reason why. And instead, they're leaving people who don't pay attention the impression that they're being basically dumped by the wayside because essentially Donald Trump hates old people and vets. They don't know about the censorship bureau being funded, even though it's supposed to end next week. They don't know about the pay raise for Congress while the rest of us are trying to figure out how to buy groceries. They don't know about things like that, or Big Pharma getting a handout in this bill. They know nothing about any of that, or the fact that there's no border money in this bill. Nothing like that comes out, and that's their evil plan. And they do that by beating everybody to the gun and by getting out there. The problem that they have is they've forgotten that Donald Trump and Elon Musk and J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy, all these people that are now coming into the government, are genius at publicity and public relations, are genius at getting their side across, at exposing the lies of the Democrat Party. Because if they hadn't been genius at it, they never would have come into power in November. They never would have won the election. But the whole reason why Donald Trump swept the country and was able to do something nobody thought he could do was because he's very good at exposing things and exposing the truth. And that's why I think he jumped in, and that's why Elon Musk jumped in and did something that you'll rarely see, and that is before being sworn into office, Donald Trump was going, no, to Congress and exposing what it was they were trying to sneak through. We'll be right back. 617-266-6868. This is the Kuhner Report. This is the Kuhner Report, and I'm Sandy Shack, sitting in for Jeff Kuhner. The text number is 70470. One texter is correcting me from the last segment, saying Old Faithful is Yellowstone, not Yosemite. If I said Yosemite, I apologize. I know it's Yellowstone. I've been there. It is. Yellowstone Park is probably easily the most beautiful place on earth I've ever seen. So it's very clear in my memory. It was a slip of the tongue. My apologies. What we're talking about is the CR. The reason why that came up, just as an aside, is because in the last big government shutdown, when President Obama was in office, they did silly things to make the shutdown more painful for people, like putting a screen around Old Faithful, like you couldn't look at it, if there was a government shutdown. It was just bizarre. But the reason why this came up is because the continuing resolution that would keep the lights on in the government was stopped cold last night by Donald Trump. And if it's not passed by midnight tomorrow, the government shuts down. And my question is that a good thing? And was Trump right to stop it? Was he right to get involved at all, given he's not sworn in yet? But if you do think he should get involved, which I have no problem doing, like he's like any lobbyist at this point to me, then he has every right to make his opinion known the same way that you or I do. Was he right to stop it? I mean, this CR, this continuing resolution, is bloated budgets. It's full of reckless spending, and it's got giveaways in it. It has billions going to Ukraine, more Ukraine, and yet it also ignores the issues at home. It locks in some very bad fiscal policies that will do nothing to fix the border issues or that will even tackle inflation. So that's some of the reasons why I think it was a really bad deal that Speaker Johnson came up with. Now, you can't forget, this is a lame duck Congress, so a lot of them aren't going to come back to office anyway. Some of them are, not all of them. There'll be new people coming in. But this continuing resolution would tie the hands of the incoming Congress, the incoming Republican majority. That's one of the big issues and why I think Donald Trump was so concerned. It locks in massive spending increases and some very bad policies. So Republicans would lose the leverage that they need in the next year or so to clean up this huge mess that's been created by President Biden and his Democrats. The plan is very obvious if you actually take the time to go through the CR. It's to pass as much of the Democrat agenda as possible before the Republicans take control of Congress. And if those Republicans who are in office now allow it, they'll find that when January rolls around, they will be unable to deal with the issues like border security or fiscal responsibility, the debt ceiling, healthcare reform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in the beginning. And all that agenda that Donald Trump ran on will be hogtied if the CR passes. That is why Elon Musk went up to the Hill. That is why President Trump and Senator Vance, soon to be Vice President Vance, issued this statement. What they need to do, and you don't have to let the government shut down. What you can do is agree on a skinny CR, which basically does the bare minimum to keep the government running and just punt everything down to the new Congress as it should be, which gives President Trump a clean slate to enact his agenda. But the Democrats don't want Trump to have a clean slate. That's the problem. They don't want a clean CR, a skinny CR. They want their agenda to be shoehorned in as much as possible. And they are the ones who are holding up the continuing resolution. They want you to believe it's the Republicans because, and they're telling you Republicans hate old people and vets and disaster victims because they won't pass this. They're not telling you that what Republicans hate is the bloated spending and the pork barrel buffet that's in there and these other Democrat policies that will hogtie President Trump. That's what they really don't like. And that's what President Trump is trying to stop. So I don't have a problem with what President Trump, with his sidekick there, Elon Musk, did yesterday. Do you? Let's talk to Roman in Boston. Roman, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Hi, Sandy. Good morning. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you.
To you, too.
I have just a quick personal note. The last time I called in was July 13th, and it was actually a very terrifying day, and I put on RKO just on a whim on that Saturday. And I want to thank you, Jeff and Mike, for coming in on that day. We've had quite a year, but you guys were a beacon in the darkness.
Thank you.
Just wanted to extend that to you. Thank you.
That's very kind. I appreciate that, Roman. You know what, Roman? I'm going to hold you right there for a second. Please stay on the line. Don't go anywhere. We have hard breaks on the show, meaning, we don't have any control over it. We have to break when we have to break. And there's a break right now. So please stay on, and you and I will continue our conversation on the other side. 617-266-6868. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. We're talking about the continuing resolution and how Donald Trump stopped it yesterday, which means the government, if they don't fix it by midnight tomorrow, will shut down. And before we went to the break, we were talking to Roman in Boston. Roman, thank you for waiting on the line. I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for holding me over. Sandy, I just want to say, do you remember, you had mentioned it earlier under Obama, that they made a government shutdown sound like it was the apocalypse, like the end of the world, and that never happened. And then they went on, like you said, and then brought back all these memories. the punitive expedition against the American public
Yeah.
that they went on.
Yeah.
And Hakeem Jeffries stands up there so sanctimonious, and the House Republicans are going to be responsible for this, and House Republicans and House Republicans. Well, you know, Donald Trump should be injecting himself into this conversation, because no one's running the country right now anyway. Who's running this country? You know, he should be. Excuse me.
You know, you bring up a good point, Roman, because have you heard anything from President Biden about any of this? I haven't. Or even, you know, Vice President Harris. Not that her input would be welcome. I'm just saying those are the two titular heads of the government right now you know, from the executive branch. I've heard nothing from the White House. Have you?
No, nothing. The only thing I heard was Kamala Harris is maybe running for governor or something, available in 2028 again, and Joe Biden back there. That's about all I've heard out of the both of them. Other than that, nothing. And what really would happen in a government shutdown? The Medicare will still get paid. Social Security will still get paid. The necessities will get paid. Mm-hmm. It may be a little inconvenient for some people. The thing that got me, and I know there are a lot of big things in that bill that they want, but what really personally struck me is that they want a pay raise.
Yeah.
How dare they ask for a pay raise after they destroyed the entire country for the past 4 years? And when Trump was president, they hamstrung them every chance they got. And they're looking for a pay raise after what they did during COVID and everything that they've done to us. They want a raise. They should get either fired or take a reduction in pay for their performance for the past 8 years. It's been absolutely ridiculous. I can't understand. That just sticks in my craw.
You and me both. Roman and I had a texter earlier who said, "What are you talking about? You got to give them a pay raise, or you're not going to get quality representatives there." Really? That's what so let's reward. If this is an example of quality representatives, I don't think we need them. How about you?
Well, it's typical government. You know what I mean? You really don't have to perform too much to get a pay raise, because they haven't performed at all. Hakeem Jeffries really bothered me yesterday when he was talking. And it's the same. Whoever gets there first, to the podium, makes the point, and then the left-wing media runs with it. And oh my God, you'll have Bernie Sanders coming out and being like, "We need to avoid catastrophic government shutdown." And it's not catastrophic.
That was a very nice impression, Roman.
Yeah, that's the best one I do.
Yeah, it's good. It's very good.
But you're going to have that, and we're all going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Well, welfare won't get shut off. Social Security won't get shut off. None of the real big things will get shut off.
Now, the people I do feel sorry for, Roman, though, are government employees. Federal employees will not get paid. But here's the thing. They will get retroactively paid. As soon as the government starts up again, they will get the money that was owed to them. But they will not get paid. That is one of the problems. And I feel badly about that. But I don't think you need to blame the Republicans for that. Blame the Democrats, because they're the ones who loaded what should have been a clean, bare-bones CR with crap to make it unpalatable to the Republicans and to the incoming administration. They're the ones that did that. They're the ones that have caused that problem. But they don't want you to look at it that way.
It's just projection. Everything they're doing, they're blaming the conservatives for. And as far as Mike Johnson, he's not a rhino. He's not MAGA. He's a conservative. And I think what Trump is going to do, and I think Trump is a powerhouse right now, because he's got a bunch of people, not a bunch. He won the election by a lot. He got the popular and the electoral college vote. So we want him there. This is what we want him doing. Mike Johnson all the Republicans just business as usual. You know what I mean? Let's spend exorbitant amounts of money on a bill that's going to benefit mostly liberal agendas. And it's just, they're always fighting defensively, and Trump is going to fight offensively, and he wants the conservatives to fight offensively, which we should. It's about time we go on offense. We're always playing defense against the Democrats, and it's not right. And it makes me feel good that someone's willing to fight. I mean, Mike Johnson, I think, can do a good job. I think he's capable of doing a good job. I just think he needs to stop being almost like a scared rabbit, and that's my opinion on that. I really don't dislike him. I don't think he's as wishy-washy as McCarthy was. So we'll see when it comes to that. But I definitely am 100% behind Donald Trump, Elon, and Vivek, because that's what they're there for. They got to cut the fat.
Yeah, I agree with you, Roman. That's why they're there. That's why that's a main pillar of Donald Trump's agenda, and it's what he was voted in to do. Because people have trouble going in and paying $6 for a dozen eggs. And, at the same time they're watching, especially if they live in the Northeast or in the Midwest, which is now under a blizzard alert, where you can't afford to heat your house because electricity has gone through the roof. These are things that Donald Trump has been brought in to help correct. And this continuing resolution flies in the face of that. Thank you so much, Roman. I appreciate the call. Our number here is 617-266-6868. When a caller drops off, it means a line has opened up for you, or you can text 70470. 508 says, I read on Gab that buried in the bill is a form of amnesty for all our new arrivals that would eliminate Trump's attempts for mass deportation. It redefines U.S. person. I'm trying to confirm such provision exists in the bill, but I wanted to share it if it might be true. I will look it up too and see if that's true. I don't know if it is either. But I will find out, because that's sneaky too, isn't it? There's all sorts of sneaky stuff in this bill. Let's go to Seth in Boston. Seth, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Hi, Sandy. Good, thanks. I'm glad your last caller finally brought up the hamstringing, because that's what's going to happen in this term, just like it happened the last term. And, I know us conservatives are excited about Trump coming in, and of course it's great, but he's not going to get much done, just like he didn't get much done his first time around, because the rhinos fight him just as hard as they fight, everybody else. And when the liberals are in charge, this is the key point to me. Mm-hmm. When the liberals are in charge, they get everything they want. And when the rhinos are in charge, the liberals still get everything they want. And we let them get away with it every single time, just like this time. This CR is going to pass. They'll pull a little bit out of it, but it's going to pass.
What makes you think it's going to pass?
Because they always pass.
Well, have they always had Donald Trump up there on the Hill going, no? And within minutes, really, of him issuing a statement, no, the support disappeared for the CR. It just disappeared. So, I mean, it's literally stopped in its tracks. And to the point where the minority leader comes out and tries to throw mud on the Republicans for doing, he was so shocked that he had to get out there right away and try to make sure the public opinion was not against them. So, I mean, you think they're that afraid to shut down the government for a couple of weeks until the new Congress comes in, Seth?
I think the rhinos have no spine at all. And all you have to do is look at when Trump was first in office, mm-hmm. right? He had the House, just like now. He had the House, he had the Senate, he had the presidency. You would think all the whining that's gone on over the last 30 years about if only we had all three houses, we could do X, Y, and Z. You would have thought there'd have been a pile of bills on his desk a mile high ready to sign. But no, they didn't do really anything great that they could have done. They didn't bring all those bills ready to sign for Trump. They just blamed it on something else, and we let them get away with it all the time. I'm of the age where they still taught civics, and maybe I'm missing something, but they have the House where the spending originates. He could bring a bill right now, a real conservative bill, even if he had to give pork to a few of his rhino buddies and say, okay, here's our bill. We have all the votes to pass it. Send it over to the Senate. But you see, they're not doing that. Or even the pork that they had to give to the rhino. They could expose the rhino and say, hey, we're trying to pass this bill, but so-and-so rhino won't pass it because he can't get his $500 million to a bridge to nowhere.
Well, you bring up a good point, but I'm going to hold you there, Seth, because I got to go into a break, and I will respond on the other side. 617-266-6868 is the number here. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. Before the break, we were talking with Seth from Boston, who didn't hold out much hope for the new administration any more than he had for the old administration, the first Trump administration, saying that the rhinos would make it difficult for Donald Trump, and that the CR would probably pass with just a couple little alterations, and that would be it. I agree with Seth that the rhinos were a very big reason why President Trump did not get more done in his first term. But I think there are a few differences with this term. One is there are not as many rhinos this time around. There are a lot more MAGA members of Congress than there were before. And Trump did not have a mandate the first time he was in office, and he does now. He didn't just squeak into office. The American people are solidly behind him, and that's evident to everybody, including the Democrats, which is why they were trying to shoehorn all this stuff in with nobody looking, because they know they have no shot at getting it in on once Trump is sworn in. Now, rhinos are usually very pragmatic when cornered, and I think that when they look at what the makeup of the voters was that swept Trump into office, they know which side is going to be benefit to them in regard to their own reelection and their own ability to govern, and so I don't think they're going to stand in his way the way they did before. I don't think it will be as hard this time. Will the CR pass? Maybe. But if it does, it won't be with lip service changes. I think there will be some very substantive differences if it passes between the version that Speaker Johnson was proposing yesterday and the version that passes, if it does, by midnight tomorrow. But we will wait and see and find out. Let's go to Kenny in Weston. Kenny, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Hi. Good morning, Sandy. Great show. Great caller.
Thank you. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. I was thinking as I was listening, it's very simple. If I was the leader or a leader of the Republican Party, I would call Jeffries up, like almost on the debate type of setting, and just say, okay, are you absolutely sure what you just named off? There's nothing else in that bill, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're going to tell? I'd call him on the spot and say, you are absolutely sure this is the moment of truth. And then come up with all the list of all the pork projects they got and the giveaways and list them all. It's just very simple. It's just like doing the debate when everybody doubted what Joe Biden was right, and then the American people saw it for what it was, and then they couldn't spin it. They couldn't lie. They couldn't do anything. And so, it's like they should call these people on the spot and front. But reporters don't do that neither, so,
No, they don't. Now, well, they didn't used to. We'll see whether they start doing it. I don't hold on any hope for the CR that they will do that necessarily, Kenny, because when I flip around, when I'm doing show prep or just when I'm doing whatever in my office or in my house, I basically I flip around on the news, and I will have more than one news broadcast on at the same time. And I listen to CNN, and I listen to Fox, and I listen to One News Nation. I listen to everybody. I go back and forth just because I want to get all perspectives, and I want to see what the line is, in particular, with if it's CNN or MSNBC or ABC, what it is that they're promoting. And last night, they're trying to promote the fact that it was wrong for Elon Musk to go lobbying on the Hill, and then Donald Trump, and, hey, they're not in elected office yet. And I'm like, well, Donald Trump was elected. I know Elon Musk wasn't, but what's the difference between Elon Musk and, say, a tobacco lobbyist or, an automotive lobbyist? What's the difference between him and them? You don't have a problem with them, so why do you have a problem with him? And Donald Trump was elected. He may not be sworn in yet, but he was elected, and he was elected by a huge majority. So I don't really have a problem with him issuing his opinion about something and doing this, but that is what they're trying to spin. That, coupled with Hakeem Jeffries going out there and throwing shade on the Republicans, saying that we hate old people, veterans, and disaster victims because we're stopping this, with no mention of we're not really happy about the Maryland delegation getting billions of dollars for their state because they happen to have a lot of committee members on those particular committees that funnel funds. And it's like, wait a minute, why is this bridge any better? And why does it have to be in the CR? Why can't, if this is such a righteous thing to pay for the Key Bridge, why aren't we doing it? Why can't we debate it and vote for it in the spring along with other budget, members? Why does it have to be snuck in the dead of night? But they don't want to mention that. I mean, because that destroys their narrative of being the good guys and the Republicans are bad people, Kenny. That's their narrative that lost them the election, and they don't seem to have learned anything by it, have they?
No, it's almost like now I call them the appliance establishment. The warranties really ran out. So how many times? And after this last election, I don't know if they still get it when they stand up there and grandstand and start. It's the same old lines. It's ridiculous. And people don't believe it.
Well, Kenny, here's the thing: their learning curve doesn't seem to be move. It seems to be a flat line, really. I mean, this has been a losing strategy for the past few years. I mean, and it really culminated in November with Donald Trump winning. They threw everything at him. They made every lie under the sun, and it's very arrogant and patronizing to think we're going to believe them at this point in time. But that they're still trying. Same playbook. They haven't switched it over yet. I would thought that they would have. Some have looked at it and gone, yeah, no. I think people like Senator Fetterman, he cracks me up. I mean, this is a guy that was in such bad shape when he was first elected from his stroke that he started his debate by going, "Good night, everybody," like it was over. I was like, oh my God. And he won in Pennsylvania. And for the first couple of years he was in office, really, his chief of staff and his wife ran the office. He was really, he wasn't really doing anything. Well, he healed. He got better. He had time to get better, and he did. And now that he is functioning again as he would wish to do, he is looking at stuff going, what the hell? And he's very pragmatic, and he goes, no, I'm okay with this, and I'm okay with that. And what's everybody's problem with? And he is not towing the party line. He appears to be becoming the new Joe Manchin since Joe Manchin is leaving. It looks like Fetterman is the Democrat in office who actually thinks about stuff and says, and is more balanced in his approach. And I think there are a lot more up there that are like that. And I know some of the people coming in are like that. So I hold out hope that they've learned a lesson and will evolve. I think we work better as a two-party system if both parties are open and honest and work hard. But, when one is just focused on throwing mud and lying, then it's when you get out of kilter and you have chaos, which is what we have now. But I think it's about to be fixed. What do you think, Kenny?
I agree 100%. I learned a lot of life lessons from approaching people, how to deal with people for the past 18 years. I was driving Francis Expelati. He was like my closest. And the stories that he had and how we got along with both parties and Republicans alike. Yeah. I mean, he was, he would be down at Sheriff Hodges' events. Bill Weldon, they were like the closest friends after he came with host, and he was respected on both sides and Republicans alike because he learned how to get along and pick up the phone and be reasoned. And it was amazing what I've learned from that gentleman for the past 18 years. And
God rest his soul.
Oh, he was something else. He was unbelievable.
He just passed away this week. Yeah, God rest his soul. So I agree with you. That is a life lesson, and it's a lesson I thought was lost with the last generation of politicians who believed in that, but maybe not. Maybe they're coming back. Thank you so much for the call, Kenny. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to Nick in Rhode Island. Nick, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Sandy. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to quickly comment on what John said earlier about why President Kennedy was assassinated. He's absolutely correct. A lot of people think that the Federal Reserve Bank is a federal bank. It isn't. It is, as he commented, owned and managed by a group of private multimillionaires. Now, in June 1963, JFK authorized Executive Order 11110, which was devised to totally divest the Federal Reserve Bank of the power to loan money to the government in interest. He wanted to return to the Treasury Department the authority to issue currency, and this sent shockwaves through the Federal Reserve owners. Also, could I add, too, that another reason he was killed is that he wanted to totally withdraw all American forces from Southeast Asia. In fact,
Oh, we lost him. Sorry, my friend. I think you have a problem there with your phone service. But I appreciate you calling and contributing, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you again soon. Let's go to Lisa in Watertown. Lisa, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Sandy.
Hi.
And Merry Christmas.
To you too, Lisa. Merry Christmas.
Thanks. There was one thing I haven't heard the complete show, but there's one thing I haven't heard anyone talk about yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the things in the CR, and I believe I read it on X, is the Congress is giving themselves immunity from having anything like emails, text messages, meeting notes, et cetera, subpoenaed or FOIA'd.
You know, it's funny you say that because I just got a text about that. It's also in the
It's
CR.
probably me that sent it.
Kind of immunity. It doesn't match your number. Kind of immunity for Congress making their text emails not subject to FOIA or subpoena. This is how sneaky they are. But Hakeem Jeffries doesn't mention that. He doesn't mention that that's in there. No. If you don't like the CR, then you don't like old people and vets or disaster victims. That's what Hakeem Jeffries says, Lisa.
So I think that it's related to the J6 committee, and they just don't want anything out there that makes them look bad.
Well, I think that's very true. So what you're saying, and what if that being in the CR, is what that is they're making a last-ditch effort to kind of cover their ass, kind of like a preemptive pardon, wouldn't you say? Doesn't it kind of strike you as a preemptive pardon?
Because I don't think that Biden would do a preemptive pardon for the whole Congress.
Yeah, so they're trying to cover their own ass as they go about it. But this is another reason. I'm sure, Elon Musk read the whole bill, and Vivek Ramaswamy read the whole bill, and I have no doubt that Donald Trump read the whole bill. And they say, this is full of stuff we cannot have because it stops us from pursuing our agenda. And it seems to me that particular clause that you're talking about, provision you're talking about, is directly on point with that it stops them from investigating. And that's one of the things that maybe we want to not have happen so that we can get to the bottom of some of these things that have been happening in the last couple of years. Thank you for the call, Lisa. I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate the information. Let's talk to Tommy in West Virginia. Tommy, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
I'm good. And by the way, let's circle back to Hakeem Jeffries.
Mm-hmm.
Does his uncle's name, Leonard Jeffries, ring a bell to you?
Why?
Back to the early 90s, Leonard Jeffries, his uncle, was teaching at City College in New York that Jews financed the slave trade, which they were in the mercantile business or whatever, which probably is true. However, what he failed to mention to young college students with skulls full of mush, that Arab Muslims were also involved with the transatlantic slave trade. And Leonard Jeffries, as a young college student, wrote a paper defending his uncle's point of view, which with many Jewish groups felt that they were being singled out back then. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I really wish that, the Republicans you got to start throwing some dirt at these Democrats because they're certainly doing it to you. And you know something?
You know what, Tommy? I don't think they need to throw dirt.
Yeah.
I think what they need to do is put the truth out there. There's a difference between,
that's
all you don't have to throw dirt. You don't have to go to Hakeem Jeffries' ancestry here. I mean, I don't really care what his ancestors did. That's not him. That's his ancestors. What I care about is the fact that he's lying. That he's saying this is all that's in the bill, and this is what that's what the Republicans don't want to pass. That to me is nefarious, and it's a bull-faced lie. And you don't have to throw dirt to counter it. You just have to tell the truth and say, well, no, this is what else is in the bill. There's a pay raise for Congress in the bill. There's a pork barrel for the entire state of Maryland and picking up the entire bill and to the tune of billions of dollars for the state of Maryland. There's refunding for a censorship group out of the State Department that was supposed to be disbanded. I mean, that's all you have to do is tell the truth. You don't have to cast mud.
Okay, fair enough. I stand corrected.
I wouldn't say correct. I wouldn't say corrected, Tommy. I would say we have a differing opinion, and so that's it.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So it's like you're a very knowledgeable and articulate guy. So I'm just saying that you don't have to play dirty. If you can be honest and win this argument because you have truth on your side, and when you do, there's no reason to play dirty, is there?
Well, no, that's true. And guess what? That's what happened in November 5th, this past election. But with regards to disaster victims, correct me if I'm wrong, in Asheville, North Carolina, which is a very rural area, there were people in the FEMA organization that there was an email that if they have Trump signs on the lawn, ignore these people, even though their trailer or their house has been devastated. So is Hakeem Jeffries referring to those people too? And
that's a very good question. Yeah, that email wasn't quite that specific. What the email was and what the FEMA woman, the woman who worked for FEMA who was fired, who then turned whistleblower, said, this is what the email said, and here's the email, I'll give it to you. Basically said, if you run against anybody who has, makes you uncomfortable with their political views. That's how they termed it, so it's the same thing that what you're talking about, but they tried to kind of weasel around it a little bit. So thinking that if they weren't specific, that it wouldn't come back to bite them in the you-know-what, but it did. But I love that question. And that is, are we talking about maybe getting funds for those people after, you walked right by their house? I think that's a brilliant question, Tommy.
Yeah, and the other problem is that they keep. This has been going on since Reagan was in office. That they're kicking the road. Now, if I go back to 1984, I just got into the union. I was very much a Walter Mondale supporter back then. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that Walter Mondale stressed to the American public is that this deficit spending, we're going to put this debt on our grandchildren. Well, Reagan doubled the national debt. He went from $997 billion at the beginning of his term to $1.8 trillion. Yes, his administration did that. And, if you go back to the 1980 election, the whole reason why Ted Kennedy ran against Jimmy Carter, to his credit, saw that, well, wait a minute, these entitlements and ending are just continuing to go up like a skyrocket, and eventually it's going to bankrupt the country. Well, I really wish when George W. Bush took over, we were only $5.4 trillion in dollars. Now we're at $36 trillion. I mean,
well, this is what Tommy, you're breaking up there. I'm sorry, but this is what Donald Trump is talking about. But you need to fix some stuff. We need to stop the runaway spending, which is impacting inflation, and we need to do a lot of things. But the first thing we need to do is stop the Democrats from stopping Trump from dealing with it, and that's what they're trying to do with this continuing resolution. Thank you so much for the call, Tommy. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to Ronnie in Boston. Ronnie, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Hey, good morning and Merry Christmas, Sandy. Merry Christmas to you, everyone in studio in Kuhner Country.
Merry Christmas to you too, Ronnie.
Thank you. I called to push back on caller Seth a bit. The landscape is completely changed. Your Paul Ryans and your Flakes and your Ben Sasses and your John McCain's and your Mitt Romneys. So many of these never-Trumpers have been purged from the party, and there's still a few left, but they're much more manageable. Trump is definitely coming into a much more, MAGA Republican Party. He controls all three branches. The Bushes have been smashed. The Cheneys have been smashed. The mainstream media complex is in tatters. Nobody's watching it. X is where most people are getting their news, or Russell Brand, or Joe Rogan, or Jimmy Dore. People have completely abandoned the mainstream media. So Democrats can rely on them for whatever narrative they want to push, but no one's listening to those narratives anymore. They don't have any missiles left in their silos. They've fired everything at Trump. And look at all the Democrats that ended up voting for Trump to make this mandate happen. It's a completely different landscape than 2016. And I also disagreed when he said that Trump didn't get much done in 2016. Despite how deep the swamp was, he moved the embassy, he smashed ISIS. We got record low tax cuts. We got the border shut down.
He was going full steam, Ronnie, until the pandemic hit, and there's nothing anybody really could have done with the pandemic. In regard to the economy, the difference is he set the economy up to reactivate and be good, and Biden undercut that. We'll be right back. 617-266-6868. So within the past hour, President Trump has thrown Speaker Johnson, who has looked pretty ineffective by agreeing to a continuing resolution that both President Trump and the House GOP do not support, and trying to get it through before the midnight deadline tomorrow. He's thrown him a lifeline. President Trump has come out in an interview with Fox Digital and said, if the speaker acts decisively and tough and gets rid of all the traps being set by the Democrats, which will be economically and in other ways destroy our country, he will easily remain speaker. So in other words, he said, clean up the CR and you can keep your job. That's basically what he's come out and said. Do you agree with that? I think if he can clean it up and get it passed, then it shows that he can be effective if he's focused and he can carry through Trump's agenda. If he can't do it, then, it's time to look for something else to do besides be speaker. You obviously stay congressman. You don't lose your seat because the people of your district voted for you, but maybe a speaker is not the job for you. Do you think Trump was right? I guess it's kind of an incentive to him saying, listen, this is embarrassing for you. It's humiliating. You did this. This was a mistake, but, fix it and we'll move on. Was that the right thing for the president to do? I think it was, actually. Bob from New Hampshire. Welcome to WRKO. How are you, Bob?
Good. How are you, Sandy?
I am fine. Do you think President Trump just did the right thing?
He always does the right thing. Yeah. Crying and moaning about not going to the Smithsonian Institution because of the shutdown. Mm-hmm. What a great opportunity when you have skin in the game for the kids to learn civics and teach them the results of, they actually can feel what the taxes mean and what they do. And because we really need to start teaching civics to kids in sixth grade, old enough where they understand, wow, this is going to literally affect me, and I'll be able to feel it and see it. So
that's a really good point. I think that's an excellent use of that situation, Bob. That's brilliant.
And that's when you feel it all, and they'll actually have real skin in the game. They're going to lose their trip. They're going to feel the pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. And I just wish that these teachers that were out there on these field trips, were as smart as you are and said, let's turn this into a teachable moment. I'm sure there's some that are, and I hope so, because I think that's a great lesson to be learned from that. And to be honest with you, I grew up in D.C., I was born here in Worcester, but my dad for work was down in DC. So I grew up there, actually half the year there, half the year here. And, there's a lot to see and do, even if the Smithsonian is closed. There's a lot of other stuff you can go and do. So and learn a big life lesson at the same time. Thank you for the call, Bob. I think that was a great suggestion for them. Let's go to Lorenzo in Boston. Lorenzo, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Good. How are you, Sandy? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
I agree with you today. Sometimes, a lot of times, I don't disagree with you. Not that you're wrong, because you're very smart. But yeah, Trump should have. I agree. Trump should have stuck his nose in. I do, and I agree with you on. I think it's going to be different this time. I think he's going to be able to get more stuff done because of the. We kind of have a mandate. He's called the media up. The media, I don't think is going to have as much bang and push, be able to push things through because everybody's onto the media now. So that was one of the things I'd like to say to you. The other question I have, though, do you think, because you probably have more inside knowledge than I do in this, but do you think the people that run Mike Johnson that are tied to the military-industrial complex, his staffers, his campaign people, do you think they're gonna? You think they're gonna force his hand and say, "No, you're gonna do this"?
I'm sorry, I lost you in the beginning. Whose ties to the military complex?
Yeah, because his.
Who's his?
Staff is,
who do you mean by his? That's like.
Mike Johnson.
Oh, Mike Johnson. Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So do I think that they're going to say what?
Do you think they're going to say, they're going to force his hand, they're going to force him to not be tough on these bills
I don't think that he can. With President Trump, I don't think that the military-industrial complex can override President Trump in this particular case. Mike Johnson is only effective if he has the support of the president, and if he doesn't have the support of the president, he can't do anything, and he will be replaced. It's as simple as that. They'll vote him out, just like they did Kevin. They did that before. The House controls who's the head of them, but the House wants somebody who can work with the president. If it's a positive relationship, if it's the same party president. So I think that's I don't think his ties with the military are going to have any effect on this. I think what is going to happen is that he's going to have to show that he can get President Trump's agenda through. Otherwise, he's looking at a replacement, looking for a new job. And I think that's what Trump just told him. Do you agree with Donald Trump throwing him that lifeline?
Well, I do, and the way you explained it was a lot better than what I was trying to get out. So thank you for clearing up my.
Well, no,
my call.
Thank you for calling. No, and I appreciate the question. I just think that he's that Speaker Johnson is going to live or die in that job with Trump's support. If he has Trump's support, and Trump says this is the guy that can help my agenda, we'll see him carry through the new Congress. If he doesn't, if he can't do this, then how is he going to do all the other difficult things like the mass deportation, et cetera, et cetera? We'll be right back. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report. I'm here sitting in for Jeff Kuhner on the Kuhner Report. Our text number is 70470. So we've been talking about the continuing resolution blow up yesterday, how essentially Elon Musk and then Donald Trump came in and stalled it completely, just killed it outright up on the Hill, because it wasn't just full of funding for vets and old people and FEMA and, with disaster victims and so forth, which is what the Democrats would have you believe. It was also full of pork and Democratic policies that they were trying to shove in before Donald Trump came into office. It had massive spending increases, and some bad policies would have been, codified, and Republicans would have lost the leverage they need in the next administration to clean up this mess that the Biden administration has put us in. So their attempt is to pass as much of the Democratic agenda as possible before the new Congress. That's what was in the CR. And Donald Trump said, yeah, don't do that. And so they didn't. The Republicans said, okay, and stepped back from the precipice and decided not to do it. And the Democrats are bull bleep. And Hakeem Jeffries came out and said, they hate old people. They hate vets. They hate disaster victims because they won't pass this, completely ignoring all the other garbage that they had thrown in there. And the real reason why Donald Trump and the Republicans don't want the continuing resolution. But all of this made Speaker Johnson look bad because he's the one that negotiated the deal that he had trying to get the Donald Trump and the Republicans to sign on to. And he's the one that has allowed all this crap from the Democrats into the bill. So it became this continuing resolution has become a referendum on Speaker Johnson and whether he can get a continuing resolution passed by midnight tomorrow that Donald Trump can approve of, that the Republicans can approve of, that's not going to hogtie them going into the next year so they can actually get some of their agenda done. And so things were looking pretty bleak for Speaker Johnson, at which time President Trump came out and said, well, Speaker Johnson can keep his job if he avoids Democrat traps. And by Democrat traps, he's referring to this horrible deal, among other things, this horrible deal that the Democrats had coerced him into or were able to convince him to do. And my question is, did Donald Trump do the right thing by throwing this lifeline to Speaker Johnson? Do you think he can go forward? I think he can. If he can get the continuing resolution done by midnight tomorrow, in the form that President Trump wants, then yeah, he can keep his job because it shows he's effective. If he can't, then he should be out. And the other question is, did Donald Trump do the right thing by getting involved in all of this to begin with? Because he hasn't been sworn in yet. And I say, yes, he did. What do you say, Gino in Buffalo? Did he do the right thing?
Yes. Good morning, Sandy. Have a blessed Christmas. And may your New Year's be filled with health, happiness, and great prosperity.
You too,
Gino. And yes, Donald Trump did the right thing.
Yeah.
And I guess my other point is, how come as soon as this comes out, Hakeem Jeffries gets on whatever TV show he can, pounds of pulpit there, and says what horrible people we are for not voting in the CR resolution. And not one Republican, not even Speaker Mike Johnson, stands up and says, oh, no, we'll vote all these things in. But here are the things that we're not voting for. And line by line, item by item, explain to the American people why it's such a bad deal. That's all they have to do. And they continually fall on their face and let the Democrats win, the media market.
Well, I think that's true, Gino, is that they should do that. I agree with you. That would be brilliant. But I think this is the issue that Speaker Johnson has. He needs Democrats to pass the CR. If he doesn't have Democrats on board, some of them, he doesn't get the CR. So he's not going to go out and alienate Democrats by calling them a liar to their face. What he did, which I think was good, is he left that to Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Elon Musk basically tweeted out that we specifically said we like funding for disaster victims and for vets and for and cattle ranchers. We're for that. We're not for this. And so that they did that in the statements they put out and in the postings on X. Both Elon Musk and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance did that. So I think what Speaker Johnson has done, not to defend him because I think he's not a particularly good speaker as I look at it today, but I think what they did is they took the onus on themselves to make him effective in trying to deal with the Democrats that they need. They don't need all the Democrats, but they need enough to pass the CR, and that, I think, is what that's about. It's just a guess on my part, Gino.
I just feel like we just don't do, and I'm not a Republican myself, but I do stand with the party when they're trying to make our country better.
I'm a conservative, but I'm not a Republican. Yes. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. I just think they fail in the media market when, even though they may alienate, it needs to be brought up that they are trying to sneak in deals. I mean, just to say they're trying to give us a raise.
Yeah.
When the rest of us have dealt with record inflation.
Yeah.
It's just appalling to me that the bad things aren't mentioned.
It bothers me too. And that's when I look at it and go, okay, why wouldn't you get, I was listening to Hakeem Jeffries and my blood was boiling. I'm like, that's not the truth. And, and I'm waiting for somebody else to come out and respond. And like, why isn't leadership of the Republican Party responding? And then I started to think about it. I'm like, well, if you're leadership and you're trying to get the CR passed and you're trying to get a clean version of the CR passed and you still need Democrats, so maybe you're going to, try to walk a little more softly, especially when you have Donald Trump, who is the 900-pound gorilla behind you, saying, yeah, you don't get a raise until you've done your job. Okay, there you go. That's what you want the speaker to say, but Donald Trump just said it. So, and Donald Trump is not part of this negotiation. He is just making his opinion known. And that is affecting a lot of Republicans, but he's actually not the president yet. So he technically isn't, in the middle of that negotiation or alienating people from that negotiation. So I think that's why you're seeing that dynamic, the ineffectiveness of, or the lack of response by Johnson. But I would think some of the Republican senators have done exactly what you just said. Rand Paul, Josh Hawley, have come out and said, this really sucks and this is why. And they have exposed some of these. So I think Johnson has left it to other people who aren't part of the negotiation to try to out that. But it hasn't been done as well as it could be, I think, Gino. I think they need to ramp it up a bit, but I understand why it's not Speaker Johnson.
It just doesn't seem as effective on our side, that's all.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Work needs to be done on that, and it's one of the things I think we need to look forward to in the new administration, because look at what happened with Elon Musk. And a texter brings this out at 508. The text number is 70470. Texter says, Sandy, if it wasn't for Elon Musk, none of the Republicans voting on it even read what was inside that bill. We need somebody that will read an entire bill and tell these Republicans this is what's in it, because they didn't. We wouldn't know anything if it weren't for Elon Musk. He's the one that read the bill. He's the one that said, everybody stop, and went up to the Hill. And he's getting criticized because he's not a member of the government, but I don't have a problem with it because he is throwing a light on a very dark place, one. And two, he's like any other lobbyist. So I don't think there's any problem with him doing what he did. But I think in the new administration, you're going to have these people who are very focused on specifics, like Elon Musk, like Vivek Ramaswamy, like a few other members of the cabinet, and members who are coming in on the MAGA wave into House, who will do exactly what you and I are talking about now, Gino.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping to see, and that's what we voted for, and hopefully it'll come to fruition. So
yeah, I agree with you. Fingers crossed, Gino. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. Let's talk to Larry in Uxbridge. Larry, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Great. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. So what do you think?
Merry Christmas to everybody in Kuhner country, and a Happy New Year.
Well, Merry Christmas right back at you there, Larry.
It just came in perfectly. Speaking with Elon Musk, who would have thought that a billionaire and a legal immigrant like Kuhner man and a billionaire like Trump has a better relationship and can relate to the common middle-class guy, working guy, than these morons in Washington, D.C. If that doesn't say it, nothing will, right?
That's pretty interesting, Larry, I have to say.
It's unbelievable that these guys can actually relate to a person like you and I and every caller that's calling in today. It's God sent. I truly believe it. This bill, that doesn't make your blood boil. The wasted money. Yeah. What we could do with this country with all the wasted money that these morons did, and to get up there with a straight face and lie like they do. I'm lost for words. What kind of.
Yeah, I agree with you. The duplicitousness of it, the arrogance of it. I think that's one thing that they better take away from the election is the patronizing isn't going to work. We're smarter than they give us credit for. And Trump realizes that, and Musk realizes that, and the future looks bright. This is the Kuhner Report here on WRKO. Our text number is 70470. And on the text line, 508 says, Sandy, one reason the rhino factor will be less is because of Musk. He, along with others, but mostly him, negate the mainstream media. Now, if Trump could convince one of the mainstream media it can be in their interest to break with the mainstream media, things would really change. Well, as rumor has it, Elon Musk was looking to buy MSNBC, which should be having a fire sale sometime soon because their ratings are so low. Wouldn't that be fun? Have the Musk network, which, from what would be a pro-Trump administration network. I think that would be a lot of fun. We've been talking about the circus on Capitol Hill where Donald Trump, with an assist from Elon Musk, has killed the continuing resolution, or killed it last night, possibly shutting down the government, definitely putting Speaker Mike Johnson, his future as Speaker, in jeopardy. But Trump came out this afternoon, or this morning, I should say, and said, well, he can stay Speaker if he can avoid the Democratic traps. And what he meant by the traps, he explained, was, things like the continuing resolution deal, which had a lot of garbage in it, which he agreed to, in his zeal to get it passed before Christmas. This was all, a huge trap, because the parts that are in the continuing resolution, these stopgap temporary spending bills, were supposed to be looked at individually. There are about 10 of them supposed to be looked at individually in September, and every couple of weeks that's what they're supposed to do. They didn't do that. They kept delaying one, and then it got on top of another one, then another one, then another one, and then we have 10 of them all together, strung together into this continuing resolution that's 1,500 pages. And contains all sorts of stuff, because 1,500 pages is a lot to, absorb every little line before you vote on it. And that's what the Democrat leadership was hoping for. They wanted it to be an overwhelming bill. They wanted nobody to be able to figure out what was in it. They wanted it to be much like what Nancy Pelosi said when Obamacare was going through, you have to pass it to find out what's in it. That's what they were hoping for, because there's all sorts of stuff in there that they know the conservative members of Congress aren't going to vote for, that Donald Trump isn't going to like, and that the American people will be bull bleep over. But they're just trying to get it through because they're trying to get the Democrat agenda through, or as much of it as possible before the Republicans take control. And a lot of stuff that's in there would affect the Republicans' ability to tackle some critical issues like border security, like, the debt ceiling, like healthcare reform, these things that Donald Trump ran on, and would become a problem. So it was all a plan. It was a big trap, and Speaker Johnson walked into it. And then Elon Musk went up and blew the whistle on it and said, I've read the bill. This is what's in it. Don't do it. Donald Trump then said, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And then the House GOP members reneged, said, yeah, no, this is a trap, and we're not walking into it. So now they're trying to get what they call a skinny CR that just does a bare minimum to keep the government running while preserving the other bills for the new Congress, and allows time to reflect and time to debate, and most likely what the Democrats are afraid of, time to say no to some of the things that they wanted, or to a lot of the things that they wanted. So that's currently where we are. And then, and that's my question is to you, is did Trump do the right thing in offering a lifeline to Speaker Johnson, saying you can keep your job if you can get the clean CR passed? I think that's appropriate. If he can't get the clean CR passed, how is he going to get Trump's agenda passed? He will show himself to be ineffective and easily victimized by the Democrats. And so I think he did the right thing. And I want to know from you, did you think he did the right thing? Mike in New Hampshire, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Mike?
Good morning, Sandy. Merry Christmas to everybody.
To you too, Mike.
Thank you. Hey, I agree that Donald Trump did the right thing. I think Donald Trump coming out this morning and giving Johnson a lifeline, I don't think I would have said anything. He is the keeper of the gate, Johnson. Mm-hmm. He did not have his people read the bill. He got fooled, and I don't want anybody working for me that can't figure these things out. This is common sense. You have to know at the end of an administration, they're going to try to push through any crap they can. And that's exactly what they were doing. And either Johnson wasn't paying attention, or he is truly a rhino.
I think Johnson was paying attention, Mike. I think what happened is You have to, I know you say that he should be prepared because it's the end of the year, but I think he was thinking he could handle these other issues on the other side of the new Congress, and it was more important to keep the lights on in the government. I disagree with that assessment. I think it was more important to make sure that Donald Trump had a good playing field to get his agenda through, because that's what the American people voted for. But Johnson is thinking more along the lines of a traditional speaker, keep the government going. So I don't think he was fooled. I think he knew what he was doing. I think there are members of Congress that were fooled. Thank you for the call. I will see you again tomorrow. Have a lovely afternoon. This is Sandy Shack. This is the Kuhner Report.